taking the lead on any team he's placed on. This model in the very first of the 2023 Transformers collaboration with Medarod takes the lead and charges into battle against the Decepticons or any similar enemies alike. It is TFM-0 Prime Truck, with a kit of Cybercore, Hyper Thunder S, Hypercharge Blade, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Explorer, which grants S rank on city terrains, in addition to the leg standard matches. Now, everyone knows the name and the appearance and the color scheme of the ever iconic Optimus Prime, and given all the collaboration that Medarod has held in the past, Machine Hero Wataru, EVA collab, certain Railgun, which ended fairly recently at time of recording, it was only a matter of time before Transformers ended up being on the docket. Even if it has been joked about in the community for ages, and Prime Truck in this instance most certainly will take the leader role of any team he's placed on and serve very faithfully no matter where you put him. Cybercore on the head part is a support-based skill, which is basically Radar Sight plus Conceal, which, to explain those effects in more detail, Radar Sight grants a success bonus to everyone across the team at about 50%, which means they're more likely to land hits and crits on top of that, and also removes any enemy's stealth or conceal effects on the other side of the field. In addition, with this Conceal effect, it will also add a stack of Conceal to everybody, which means for that one turn, they will have boosted evade until attacked, and will also negate any pierce or AoE damage for that one hit to keep the damage as controlled and as low as possible. Hyper Thunder S on the right arm, and essentially the ever iconic power gun that Optimus Prime wields, is essentially kind of half a new skill, but at the same time it's not. Simply explained, it's basically Hyper Thunder, which is just regular thunder with pierce damage and higher base power, but in this case, it's now instead a shooting attack, which means we now actually have two different variants of the same skill, which adds for a little more versatility across whatever team it's put on if you need someone to stop enemies in their tracks. Hypercharge Blade and the energy axe that he's wielding on his left arm is another skill we've started seeing fairly often, which basically is Charge Blade 3.0. It'll deal up to 300% bonus damage relative to the charge gauge of the user when attacking, but it will also eat 30% of their Metaforce charge upon damaging the target. 15%, of course, if the part is capped at 5-star. But still, high damage, but also very expensive when it comes to maintaining Metaforce sustain in this case. Legs means that Prime Truck has pretty solid coverage across most terrains, as bipeds have arguably one of the better all-rounded leg types in terms of terrain coverage and matches, but the leg ability of Explorer adds a little bit more of a kick to Optimus in this case, as it means that on road terrains, which biped legs usually are about an A or a B rank at best, this instead means that Optimus will have an S rank on the terrain and lead the charge valiantly into battle with boosted stats on any city terrain that they're fighting on, which will give him an edge on the field when it comes to speed and staying ahead of the competition. His stats across the board too as a collab model are most certainly no laughing matter in this case too, and very healthy across the board, with a head HP of about 3750, right arm about 3900 HP, left at 4000, and legs at 4300. Pretty healthy HP pool there as well, pretty much as to be expected of the leader of the Autobots in this case, and his leg stats most certainly are no exception to this rule either, with a base mobility of 905 already off to an incredibly good start with a good base speed. An evade of 849 isn't super great. He may have a little bit of a time trying to dodge or graze incoming attacks, but that is where Cybercore can come in and kind of comp that to a point, so it is kind of a relatively easily skirted issue. But with a melee resist of 1344 and a shoot resist of almost 1400, Optimus in this case will most certainly hold his own very, very well against anyone upcoming close and personal, or anyone trying to take pot shots at him from afar. And being able to support two heavy slots on its legs only makes him even better in this case when it comes to the kind of coverage and power that he can bring to the table. Now, much like anyone who does know the Transformers series has does know up to this point, Prime Truck also is capable of transforming into a vehicle-type mode, tucking in his body and becoming a red and blue truck in this case, putting the cannon on the right side of his body as a mounted gun. In this form, he exchanges his kit for Overcharge, Break Hammer, a new skill called Guard Heater, Wield Legs, and the leg ability of G Control, which changes all terrains to S rank upon maintaining a certain Metaforce threshold. Now, they honestly could not have possibly picked a better leg ability for meta-changed Optimus Prime than G Control. As for any series that he's in, animated, live action, or so on, no matter where he's transformed or what terrain he's racing on, it's almost as if the terrain doesn't bother him. That can be on dirt, on water, on gravel, on roads. It doesn't matter. It almost never impedes Optimus Prime in his charge in the battle against the Decepticons or any enemies that are in his way. Overcharge on Drive A is a rather unique skill, but it has an interesting caveat but an interesting condition. Upon attacking the target, it will fill the enemy's Metaforce gauge by 15% upon attacking. But the catch to that is, if you attack a target that has a full Metaforce charge, 100%, the attack quintuples in damage and also converts into an AoE. This means that anyone that uses full charge or auto charge leg abilities or anything that does require a full Metaforce to use, Ghost, Ghost Shot, Beam Sword, Hyper Beam, or whatever, this is the ultimate punish move to end them quickly and easily before they have any chance to even wreak havoc on the field when the fight begins, especially because he can use this without ever having to use charge from his own gauge to fire it. Break Hammer on Drive B is a gravity attribute skill with innate pierce damage, but this is very good for heavy punish. That means the more heavy parts that the target has equipped, the more bonus damage this will be dealing. The lighter the target, one or fewer heavy parts means not as much damage. 2 or more will be absolutely feeling the pain. Guard Heater on Drive C is another new skill that Optimus will be introducing to the game, which essentially is as simple as it reads. It's basically Guard Boost and Heater, which is 50% boost to your shoot and melee resist stats, and then another 50% to everyone's heat stat across the board once the effect is in play. Now, this is very similar to Cooler Boost to a mobile cooler we got with Monokoto Twin from the Railgun collab, where it's 2 support skills merged into one. But being completely honest, Guard Heater I can see having a lot of immense capability and viability on the field, with increased resistances and faster heat stats to allow you to much easier outrun your targets. And when it comes to stats across the board too, very solid base power at about 1400 and a little over 1500 with his 2 offense skills. And the stats on the legs, or essentially in combined form, are also very solid too. By trading in about 300 of his evade, going from about 800 to down to low 600s, he will boost his mobility up to over 1,000 in this case, which makes him even better and essentially to be expected on wheeled terrains. But his melee resist and shoot resist will stay moderately close at about 1358 and 1327 respectively. So moderately good coverage and damage reduction no matter which form he's in. And even though wheeled legs normally tend to be really picky on the fields there are, Optimus Prime in this case honestly takes that and throws it out the window because of G Control. This means that even though he may not be as necessarily Metaforce reliant in this case, having a supplementary ability to do so for Hyper Charge Blade or even Break Hammer in this case allows him to basically have S rank on any terrain he's on, no matter where he is or what kind of terrain it is, which gives him ultimate coverage and the master of all terrains across the board. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Prime Truck a very solid 9 out of 10. Even though he does seem relatively heavy and kind of a weird kit at first glance, he does honestly use it fairly well. Between Cybercore and Guard Heater, he has a pretty nice coverage of support skills all in one kit. And then between Hyper Thunder Shooting, Overcharge, Hyper Charge Blade, and Break Hammer, he has a very nice coverage of Metaforce supplement attacks, but also a lot of coverage attacks for any enemies he may face. And wheeled legs do also guarantee that he will have good, very fast base mobility, and G Control guarantees that there is no terrain that will be stopping him once the fight begins. The only real weaknesses I do have to note though for Prime Truck is the fact that because he is packing 2 heavy parts and some pretty heavy artillery at that, he will be subject to a lot of cooldown weaknesses or even heavy punish to a point for anyone that does manage to outrun him or catch him in a weakened state. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a hair lower at about 8.5 out of 10. given that even though with his meta change form you are missing out on Overcharge, Break Hammer, and a very solid support skill of Guard Heater with Wheeled Legs at G control, it's not really going to be a make or break if you don't want to use Optimus Prime as a pure set. It is usually encouraged you would for the sake that he is a transforming type bot, but if you do find use of his parts elsewhere, Cybercore, Hyper Thunder Shooting, and Hypercharge Blade, you can use them pretty solidly pretty much anywhere else, and his legs still have immensely wonderful stats across the board. Any of his parts you really can't ever go wrong with using.